Craig, I heard you commenting on this yesterday. Why is Doctson so engaging, like during the mini camps and training camp, but then like during the season, he's not that willing to talk to the media? What's going on with
This is
that?
usually bombing.
Well, I part of it is that, like, what is he going to talk about? Right. He hasn't been good, and he's he acknowledged that to a point yesterday too. He's just like, yeah, I definitely want to be better. I understand why they didn't pick up the option. I'm going to hit free agency. I'm not the first guy. I'm not the last guy. It is what it is. But I think part of it, and I thought about this a lot yesterday because I was just reminded how good he is when he talks this time of year. I think he's just a thoughtful guy who's got more going on than football. And some people looked at that as a negative, but I don't think he's the type of guy either that if he just focused on football more, if he was all football all the time, that he'd be a better player. Like, I don't think it's a lack of focus on football that's caused him to not produce at the level that everyone wanted him to produce at. I think it's just who he is as a player. He's a scheme fit kind of guy who's not necessarily in the right scheme for him, and certainly hasn't had the right quarterbacks for him, guys that are going to give him chances on contested balls down the field and allow him to do the one thing he's really ultra special at, which is going up and getting the ball in contested situations. He hasn't had quarterbacks that have been willing to take risks, and especially to wide receivers. So that's who he is as a player, but he's so thoughtful and so engaging and clearly like spends time thinking about the world outside of football. And so when you get the chance to talk to him about this trip he took to Rwanda or the books he's reading or things like that, like it's a very, very welcome change of pace from your typical football conversation, which is this, match of predictability. It's just back and forth of the same questions and the same answers. So the fact that he listens and considers the questions and then has different answers than other people, I like that. I think it's refreshing. It's something that I'm hoping to sit down with him and talk to him more about the things that interest him, because I think he's a genuinely interesting person. But I also think that he doesn't feel like he needs to share that necessarily. I think that's changing a little bit because I think he's getting to a point in his life where there are things about the world that he wants to share his thoughts on. Which will be interesting to talk to him about if he's willing to talk. But I also don't necessarily think he thinks that deeply about football. And I don't even say that as criticism. I just think he's like, yeah, I go out, I run the route, I catch the ball or I don't, or I get the ball and I don't. Like, there's only so much to think about there. And I think that's been my frustration in the past, is not really realizing that part of the equation where, like, he sees football as a child's game and he's got the athletic ability to do that, as opposed to, say, a quarterback who has to think of it as this massive that can kind of be a little bit more isolated.
Well, he sounds like a great guy. I probably wish he was a little dumber and
If he
more
was dumber, he'd be a
focused.
better player, yeah.
I mean, I hear what
See,
you said,
that's
though.
what I struggle with. I don't know. Like, I don't
I hear
know
ya.
if he would just focus on football, if that would turn him. I mean, maybe if, like,
Sounds
that's
like he's
how
too
he
smart.
was. Well, that's the thing. It's like, if he was made differently, maybe, but like,
Yeah, he needs to be a little
this
dumber.
outlet. If he doesn't have the outlet to think in other places, he just winds up putting all that pressure on himself on the field, and he'd be worse. But now, while saying all those really nice things about him, and he would have no problem with me saying this because he said it yesterday, like, he knows he's got to be better. Like, ultimately, success to him is winning, and for them to win, he has to be more productive. And that's also why, like, just because I think he's maturing and because, he's got this really interesting personality, like, that doesn't mean I think he's going to be awesome this year.
Right, I get it.
I do need to see it in games because he's had two great training camps where he's looked incredible, and he's had two good springs. He's got to do it on Sundays in the fall. Otherwise, all this other stuff is just, it's sidebar stuff.
Isn't one of the knocks against him, though? I mean, obviously, we all hear he can't get separation, that sort of thing. But, I mean, like, how's his route running? If he's so smart, why doesn't he polish that up, make it perfect?
It's hard. It's really hard.
He's a freak athlete. He can do this.
Yeah, but his freakishness is a lot more linear. Straight line. That's why he was able to run a good 40. He run a 4.5, but he doesn't play at 4.5 because playing at 4.5 involves eventually changing directions. And so can he consistently, and also, by the way, guys, change of direction skill, that's scaring a defensive back that you might break and snap off the route at any time, also allows you to get behind them. He doesn't really have that. You guard against him getting deep, and it's a lot easier to do when he's a one-trick pony. So his lack of change of direction at an elite level hurts him on the route running stuff. And so that's why he can't necessarily create separation. But he's also good at just using his body to shield. And we saw that on a lot of the slant stuff last year where he started to make a little bit of an Alex started toward the end of his run to throw him those slants contested, and Josh would just basically box out because he's got a basketball background. It's something he's comfortable doing. So I think that's something where if Haskins or Keenum go back and watch the tape from last year, they go, oh, okay, open for him has a little bit or a little bit different definition than open for a guy who's got to create real separation to catch the ball.